Good afternoon, everybody. It's great to see so many people here for the 10th anniversary and focused on safety. So my topic today is Coca Cola Operational Excellence, a safety diagnostic event. Who's heard of Operational Excellence, OE, process improvement? Anybody? Okay, so some folks. Well, it's been around since the 1980s, but for Coca Cola, it was new for us as we use this process for safety. So the company that I work for, I'm based in the U.S., obviously, the western part of the United States. So I think we're about 7 time zones away. So it took me about 24 hours to get here. Glad I'm here. Good to sleep. But the company that I work for, we're based in the western part of the United States, and we support 13 of the states, western states. We have 54 locations and 6 production plants, about 7,500 employees total. Where I'm from is the southern part of Arizona, and we're known for a number of things in Arizona. We have cactus, desert landscape, so the complete opposite of Iceland, probably. We have swimming pools, which that isn't my pool. I wish it was. It's beautiful. We have these dust storms. If you can just look at how high these houses are in relation to how tall this particular dust storm is. There's only 2 places in the world that actually have these types of storms, Arizona and the Sahara Desert. And it's very, very, very hot in the summertime. So this is 117 degrees Fahrenheit, which I believe is 47 degrees Celsius. I hear I get it, believe me, it's hot for me too, but that's where I live. So I'm not used to this climate this storm that you've had the last couple of days. Shocking. I'll live. So what I want to talk about today is have a discussion on culture. We'll talk about safety maturity and how we've evaluated safety maturity across Coca-Cola. And then we'll talk about operational excellence and the process that we use to really diagnose where we were having injuries and how we can improve the processes around that. And then we'll end with a case study from where I'm from in Arizona and the successes that we've had. So I'll start with how we got here. So this process that I'm going to describe today, we started back in 2011, 2012, and we were seeing small incremental reductions when it came to incidents across the board, but we really weren't having the large reductions that we were looking for. And so we hired a consultant to come in and really assess our culture. We did some focus groups, we did some surveys, we talked to a bunch of people really to understand what the employees were thinking versus the management. Didn't always match. We conducted these workshops that were focused on this OE process that we'll talk about today. And then finally, we built these grassroots teams that were employee-led that took these processes from start to finish and really implemented them across the facility. So let's start with culture. Culture is defined as the social norms and behaviors found in human societies. And culture is really an interesting dynamic, and the best way for me to describe it is a tree. If you're a safety professional, you've probably seen the iceberg. Anybody seen the iceberg? Yeah? Okay. I'm sick of icebergs. So we'll do a tree. So with this particular tree, you can see the bark, the branches. When it comes to culture, you can see leadership, right? I know very good leadership versus very poor leadership. Routines, how do we get this widget from point A to point B? Policies, standard operating procedures, things that are written, pass from one person to the other. But it's really what's under the surface that accounts for 90% of culture. These are the assumptions, behaviors, beliefs, tribal knowledge, and norms that really are important things to look at that are harder to understand and not as tangible. So let's watch a short video on culture. All right, so at Coca Cola, one of the things that we have is we have a safety message of the day. And anytime we start a meeting or we start a shift, we always start with a safety message of the day. So that was one way that they used the safety message of the day really to bring it to life and show employees. So it's a funny example, right? It's a banana peel. Who really slips on banana peels? But this really could be any hazard that you have in your work environment. It could be an employee on the top rung of a ladder. It could be somebody twisting instead of pivoting. So safety culture refers to the way safety issues are addressed in the workplace. It often reflects the attitudes, beliefs, and perceptions that employees share in relation to safety. In other words, how we do safety around here. So think about that. Those are all things that are under the surface, right? Attitudes, perceptions, beliefs. They're hard to calculate. So if you take nothing else from this presentation, I think this is actually one of the most important slides. Culture drives the behaviors that set the norms. If you change the norm, you will change the behavior. If you change the behavior, you will ultimately change your culture. So let me give you a little example. So if I'm a brand new warehouse associate, it's my first day on the job, you go through your required safety training that nobody likes. I'm a realist, I understand. You go out on the warehouse floor for the first time and you see another employee not wearing their seatbelt, right? The supervisor doesn't seem to care, doesn't hold them accountable. What is the culture, right? That's going to drive the behaviors of that associate. They say, hey, it's no big deal. And that's going to set the norm. And something as simple as a seatbelt, that goes a long way, right? Got an example today where somebody was explaining to me about the fisheries, right? And wearing hard hats on the ship. And even the CEO, they have to wear it. So that sends a strong message to your employees around culture. So it's important to look at. So who's heard of candid camera? Anybody heard of candid camera? All right. So for those of you who have not, it was a reality TV show. It was actually the first reality TV show. And in 1962, they had a skit. And it actually tested Polish psychologist Solomon Asch's paradigm on culture and conformity. So take a watch.
The gentleman in the elevator now is a candid star. These folks who are entering, the man with a white shirt, the lady with a trench coat, and subsequently one other member of our staff will face the rear. And you'll see how this man in the trench coat tries to maintain his individuality, but little by little, he looks at his watch, but he's really making an excuse for turning just a little bit more to the wall. Now we'll try it once again. Here's the candid subject. Here comes the candid camera staff, 3 of them at least. And this man has apparently been in groups before. Now, here's a fella with his hat on in the elevator. First, he makes a full turn to the rear, and Charlie closes the door. A moment later, we'll open the door. Everybody's changed positions. Now we'll see if we can use group pressure for some good. Now, in a moment, on Charlie's signal, everybody turns forward. There it is. Notice they take off their hats. And now, do you think we could reverse the procedure? Watch.
(1962), but it still holds true today. It's funny, right? But again, remember those small things when it comes to culture. They can mean the difference in life and death sometimes. So, I'd like to talk about safety maturity. So, one of the things that we did at Coca Cola across all of North America is evaluated each of the 420 different distribution centers that we had. And we wanted to really look at what was the difference between cultures and facilities from a very reactive process to one very engaged and a mature safety culture. So we had 5 different levels. The first one being awareness. Safety owns safety. Does that sound like any organizations that you've been around? Right? Level 2 was compliance, very reactive, very little proactive initiatives. Management drives safety. So this would be the top leader of the organization, of the plant manager, really dictating from a safety perspective. Level 3, involvement, more systematic, focused on lagging and leading indicators. So starting to look at those more proactive approaches. Associates have corrective action authority. Level 4, focus on leading indicator, continuous improvement, and associate ownership begins. And level 5, embedded, 0 is possible, peer-to-peer feedback. Associates driving the safety. They basically telling the management, you're going to do this, right? So looking at these levels, show of hands, how many think their organization is at a level 1? Level 1? Okay. Level 2? Few. Level 3? Okay. How about 4? Couple? 5? Okay. Very good. So what we did, as mentioned, is use the DMAIC process. And it's been around a while, but for us, it was very new to Coca-Cola. And the process is DMAIC. So define the problem, measure the current performance, analyze the potential root causes, improve the process, and control. So all business folks in here, we'll use a business example to kind of break the ice with this process. But how many people get a lot of email? Yeah? Okay. I get a ton. it's hard to manage my inbox, frankly. So we want to use that process to kind of diagnose and see what we can do to change that process. So for today, I get a lot of email. So that's my problem. If we want to measure this problem that I have, it's like an addiction. I get on average 100 emails a day. Does that sound like anybody in here? Yeah, handful. So for me, I want to analyze this problem. The problem that I have is I lose focus. I lose productivity. I respond to emails as they post. You have that ding, right? That I'm checking who I need to respond to. If we want to improve the process, maybe minimize that as a distraction and focus on value-added activities, right? And then my control would be maybe close my inbox, silence the alerts, check it maybe 4 times a day to avoid the distraction. So that's really using the DMAIC process in very simple terms outside of safety. So for us, I'll give you an example of what we've done at Coca Cola. So we want to define. So this is a look at all of our different groups that we have. So we have drivers that deliver Coca-Cola product to our customers. We have merchandisers that work in our stores and put the product on the shelf. We have warehouse people that put the product on the trucks for the drivers. Account managers write the orders. And cooler service installs the cooler and the vending equipment. So if we were to look at our lagging indicators here of total claims and our total incident rate and lost time claims, the drivers really kind of bubble to the surface. They're obviously over prior year using the red. Cooler service is over a little bit, but the drivers really are driving the bus as far as the total number of incidents that we have. And by the way, this is fictitious. These are ridiculous numbers. I did it for visual effect. So the next part of the process is to measure. And this is really a fun activity to get our frontline employees involved, specifically in the process. And we build these process maps from start to finish, everything that a driver does from clock in to clock out. And what they essentially do is identify where in the process these injuries are happening. So I'll just read these, and then we'll do a fun little exercise, get some participation. So the driver will clock in, they select the route, they assess the parking lot and find the assigned truck, they complete their pre-trip, they exit the yard and drives to the first stop, driver docks truck, exits the vehicle, driver operates the lift gate, enters trailer, removes product with hand truck or power industrial truck from trailer. Driver moves product with equipment to store and stock location. Driver stocks shelves and coolers. Driver organizes stock room. Driver removes breakage and pallets. Driver enters trailer, organizes and cleans trailer. Repeat the delivery process. At the end of the day, they'll complete their pre-trip and clock out. So what's fun about this is they get to take sticky notes, small notes, and we write on that piece of paper what the injury was. And we have them, we blow this up, or we put this on the wall, and we allow them to put the sticky note of that particular injury where those injuries are occurring. So we'll go through some of these and see if you can help me identify where these defects belong. So the first one is driver crushed right index finger while attempting to unjam lift gate. Take a look. What do you think? Operates lift gate. Thank you. So we would put that sticky note right there. Next one, driver injured their lower back while rearranging product in customer's cluttered storage room to make room for new inventory. Anybody? What was that? All right. How about driver organizes the stock room? All right. The next one. Driver slipped on wet trailer floor while cleaning trailer and injured their right knee on impact. So cleaning the trailer. Okay. Driver enters the trailer and organizes and cleans trailer. And then the last one here. Driver strained right shoulder while stocking 2-liter bottles on the top aisle shelf. Good. Stocking shelves and coolers. So what was really interesting for us about this process was I would actually bet money on the stocking shelves and coolers, because that's the most manual process that our drivers actually go through on a daily basis. But it actually wasn't the most common. It was they were moving product with equipment to the stores, which was actually shocking. And so one of the learnings that we have certainly was to let the data do the talking and not jump to those conclusions and assume you know the answer, because we were wrong. So the next part of this process is to analyze and use cause and effect fishbone diagrams if you've used these. And it really starts with the effect. So the effect that we had drivers injured while moving product with equipment. And we wanted to evaluate all the different causes between the machine, the material, the man, the method, and the measurement. And again, what we found when we went through this process with the employees and really got their involvement and analyzed where we were at and what was happening, we found that the equipment that we were using was causing the injuries, which was shocking because it was brand new equipment that we had. Why? Why was that happening? So that's part of the improve stage, is to, look at your current state, look at your future state, and see what you can do to change that. So I'll show you a little video about the equipment that we're using now. So that was actually a video that the drivers used to help train the associates. But what we found with this process, or why we were having these injuries, was there was no preventative maintenance process around this particular equipment. And so we started getting this equipment to our fleet department for regular maintenance and checkups, essentially. The next thing that we found is this equipment is just plastic, right, that we're moving in and out of the customer's premises. But what we found is the bottom of these would get worn out, and the threshold between the bottom of the forks and the actual pallet was 1/4 of an inch. Imagine going over rough terrain and in and out of customers' outlets, and that gets worn down very quickly. So we designed these pallet supports to help with that process and slow that down, which was huge. And then obviously just budgeting some new equipment as needed. We did test a motorized unit, but found when the battery died, the thing just stopped moving. You couldn't move it anywhere, so just wasn't a viable process. And then we ended up doing a kind of an obstacle course and training new and existing employees how to use this particular piece of equipment, which was fun. And then the last thing as part of this process was the control or the steering committee. And for us, this is really where the rubber hits the road, because this is the employees taking those ideas, taking those processes, and driving it to the next level from start to finish. So for us, it was vitally important because we can engage really the front line in the process, really tap their ideas for projects. We could evaluate and keep evaluating these defects and where we were having incidents. If we had another one, we could really dive in and focused on it. We could really affect our culture, again, driving the incidents down, engaging in the employees. That's where we really had the most success, and certainly just empowering the change within the organization. Everybody becomes engaged with the process around safety. So for us, there was some key learnings going through this steering committee and process improvement. In Coca Cola, it's like a big ship, very hard to turn, but once you do, it's not going back. So some of the things that we learned through this process is we had to have leadership commitment. It wasn't a situation where it was a flavor of the day. You couldn't say, hey, you're going to go through this process, you're going to improve safety, but it's kind of busy today. This isn't going to work. So we actually signed a service level agreement with the locations that went through this, that they understood we're either all in or we're not doing it. Select willing committee members to be part of the process. Just because John isn't very busy today, he gets to be part of the process. No, I want Mary, the person that's engaged with safety, that wants to do it, that cares about their fellow employees. Align on the meeting frequency. Again, if you say you're going to have it on Tuesday at 2 p.m., then have it at Tuesday at 2 p.m. Determine the structure and reporting cadence. Again, these were processes that the front line picked, decided, and implemented essentially across the facility. Trained to the steering committee process. Again, it's an evolution. With safety, you often hear that it's like a marathon. It's not a sprint, so you always have to continuously improve. We revisited the diagnostic, the OE tools to address cultural issues. Culture was just as much an important piece to changing than just doing projects. Prioritize actions. At one time with Phoenix, we had 65 different projects that they wanted to work on, and I'm thinking, 65? So select just do it projects and projects for quick wins. Again, with your employees, you see that you're engaged in the process. You do some of those things that it doesn't cost a lot of money, not a lot of time, but they see that that you're engaged. Project teams report progress. So again, they take the ownership. They're building their team. You will find with this process informal leaders, people that I don't know if they'd be management capable, but you go through this process and you're like, wow, they really get it. So that's important. And then revisit the process maps and trends for new projects. So for us, as mentioned, we were one of the locations that went through this process. And Phoenix is a very large distribution center. So Phoenix as a whole, where we live, there's about 6.5 million people. So it's quite large. Our distribution plant is about 650 employees, from production staff to drivers to warehouse, so on and so forth. But one of the first things that we learned right away is the engagement of the employees, from the top leader in the organization down to the lowest level. Everybody was treated the same. I was much younger and much thinner there. I want to go back. But one of the things that we learned through the process and through our culture building was we weren't very good at recognition. The management, we thought we were doing a lot, but the employees thought that we could do more. One of the things that we did to recognize in the warehouse 1,500 days without a incident, not injury, we asked the employees to design a t-shirt, and we had all the employees vote on them and had them made for the employees. You still see them out in the warehouse today. We have these safety awards. They're coins that we give to the employees for significant milestones, or what I like to give them out for is clean roadside inspections. So if they get pulled over by an officer and nothing's wrong, that's a great way. These things cost nothing. And then caught in the Aft Safety Awards. So these are awards that the safety committee members or the supervisors can give out to employees for, doing something safe, helping out their coworker, turn them in for prizes and different things. The projects, I could talk for 3 more hours and you'd be bored to tears, but I'd do it. About the projects that we did. So here's one example, just a small little clip to put in the door of the cooler so the associate doesn't have to keep their elbow out as they're filling it up, right? You'll notice he has knee pads on, brings a tear to my eye. We also have a newsletter, Approaching Zero, that the committee developed to share with all the associates in the facility of the things and the improvements and getting other ideas. So really opening up that door for the inclusion from a safety perspective. We put these blue lights on the back of the forklifts so you can see them coming out of trailer doors or aisles. I mean, very, very busy warehouse environment. Lots of noise, lots of things happening. So it's a great visual. Built a tool to help this particular associate. They've got soda that goes in the aisle there, and it goes back pretty far rather than them climbing on the equipment, which is a disaster waiting to happen, right? Why safety matters to me. This is a wall that we use in our facilities for the employees to put why safety is important to them, whether it's their kids, put a picture of their cat Fluffy, I don't know. But imagine that as a new employee walking in, and that's the first thing that you see is 100 employees and their testimonials of why safety is really important to them. We talked about the Cool Lift cart earlier. We have to move these cylinders into customers' outlets, and if you've ever had to move these things in trailers, it's not a great process unless you have some kind of rack, because OSHA frowns on it, and so does the Department of Transportation for us. But we designed these in-house using some just fabricated metal together, and now this company, Magliner, sells them back to us for like $400. Waiting on the royalties. I'll be rich one day. And then again, another hook for the associates to help with pulling chocks out of trailer, out of the underside of the trailer, or pull up doors, things of that nature. But actually, one of the best ideas that came out of Tempe was the Pallet Stop, and it's just a small piece of diamond plating on the floor to help remove empty pallets. And if you've ever had to do this process, it's a pain. So here's a video. And I promise you, that's not a trip hazard. It's so low to the ground. I've tried to trip on it. It didn't happen. But what was really neat about this is we were invited to take this design to the Applied Ergonomics Conference. And it's an international safety conference, typically in the US. And we actually won the Simplicity Award in 2016, which was amazing. It was actually the first time a food and beverage industry had won an ergonomics award, which was really cool. And for me, taking the warehouse manager, taking a frontline associate to share their design with companies around the world, it was amazing. So we went back this last year with a design from our production team on the conveyor cleaner, and the problem that we have anytime you spill soda or debris on the conveyor line with the food safety rules that we have, it's a disaster waiting to happen. And before, what the process was is the maintenance employees have to do that. They're usually the best paid people in the building, and you want them cleaning up? Not really. So here's the video. So this design was amazing because it reduced the risk by about 96% of the job. They're actually working on a 2.0 version where the automated arm. So all they have to do now is put on the air or the water line to do it, but they're looking to improve it, which is tremendous. Really, with this process, the proof is in the pudding when it comes to some of those incident rates and the reductions that we've seen. So in our warehouse environment, we've actually seen a 91% reduction in our OSHA recordable rate. You'll also notice down here, this is lost time scoreboard that the warehouse has. So several years without a lost time incident, which is great. Distribution or our driver group, a 68% reduction. But really, more than just those lagging indicators, it's the culture. Safety is no longer just a flavor of the day. It's really embedded with the associates, and they take pride in what they do every single day. So in conclusion, again, this OE process will help drive that engagement, especially at all levels, from the front line up to the top of the organization. We found that it really improved our culture with really breaking down some of those lines and process improvement. Boost employee morale. We've reduced our turnover. The scores of surveys on morale are never better. And certainly it will help with the safety maturity of your organization. So just some key takeaways from, again, what we've learned using the tools and the data. really to drive those improvements. Again, we use the data, not jumping to conclusions, letting the data do the talking, identifying those root causes, really focused in on those process improvements. Do those quick wins, right? If there's things that are cheap to fix or are going to improve the safety right away, go with that. And then finally, with our steering committee, having a robust steering committee that meets regularly and focuses just on incidents and just on process improvements. So with that, that's my presentation. Appreciate your time. If you have any questions, you can feel free to email me. Thank you very much.